Viva la Vida was painted in 1954 by Frida Kahlo, one of 30 still lifes she'd create throughout her career. However, you may be wondering, why have I chosen this painting compared to all her masterpieces? For example, the two Fridas, which delves into her contrasting identities of traditional yet damaged to more modern and independent, or one of her many detailed and brightly colored self portraits, each exploring different aspects of her life and identity. Well, in order to understand the significance of this painting, let me take you to Mexico City. This is Casa Azul, the blue house, the childhood home of Frida Kahlo, where she'd spend majority of her life, becoming her museum after she passed away, where I got to visit last summer. As I walked through the beautifully decorated bedrooms, seeing the family portraits on the wall and the sketches in her journal, and made my way to the kitchen, I couldn't help but acknowledge that the fact in that very moment, I was standing in the room where Frida Kahlo would have ate dinner in every single night. However, as I made my way to her bedroom, it became an almost uncomfortable experience. Here I was, standing in front of Frida's bed, where she would have slept in and become bedridden to. It was almost as if Frida was here with us in the museum, having her vulnerabilities on display, and we were prying in. But hung up on her bedroom wall was this painting. To my surprise, none of Frida's most famous artworks were in her museum. Yet this insignificant painting of watermelons that I didn't quite understand. But inscribed in the front slice was Viva la Vida, which is Spanish for long live life. This painting is Frida Kahlo's last painting she'd create, finished a week before she passed away. It is an oil on Masonite, which is a type of hardboard which emphasizes texture and color, yet is sturdy enough to be painted on when laying on a bed. Inscribed underneath Viva la Vida is Coyoacan, 1954, Mexico, the neighborhood where Frida Kahlo would spend majority of her life. By inscribing this on her last painting, Frida is highlighting the significance of this neighborhood on not only her career, but her life and identity. Viva la Vida can be interpreted in multiple different ways. Perhaps it was a direct message of Frida's embracing and celebratory sense for life. Or perhaps it was an ironic commentary on her pain-filled and short life that ended at just 47 years old. Unlike majority of Frida's artwork, she uses a primitivism art style, which is commonly used by folk artists and Mexican artists. Primitivism art focuses on abstract forms in bold yet simple colors in order to emphasize the vitalities and vibrancies of life. The impasto technique used throughout the painting allows Frida to create a textured surface to the watermelons, as well as emphasizing the lusciousness of the watermelon flesh, appearing to the viewer as juicy and sweet. The vibrant red and green tones used throughout the painting create a sense of warmth and energy. However, is juxtaposed by the somber undertones of the background and foreground. Perhaps this is reflecting on Frida's own internal juxtaposition while trying to hold on to life despite her approaching death. The bold yet smooth curves used to mimic the organic and round shapes of the watermelon creates a harmonious tone to the painting, pretending to be a perfect painting. However, this painting is far from perfect. For starters, the perspective is off and inconsistent, lacking a traditional style, as well as the use of improper shading really just shows a lack of skill. In the bottom right quadrant, we see a watermelon with harsh, cut-open shapes, attempting to create a dynamic feel. However, when compared to the rest of the painting, it just looks improportional and out of place. The blue azure sky with the wisps of white clouds may look intentional, but when looking closely, it uses inconsistent technique, making the painting look unfinished. It is just as easy to criticize this painting as it is to compliment it. And for such a revered artist, it shows a lack of skill. However, this is not a reflection of Frida's talent. We know she is one of the most talented artists of the 20th century, but rather It's a reflection on Frida's deteriorating body and health. Frida's deteriorating body and health links to the significance of watermelons. Why has she chosen this as the subject of her last painting? Watermelons are a symbol of love and life in multiple cultures across the globe. They flourish off of little moisture. They're quite a resilient fruit. And this resilience is a direct reflection of Frida's resilience, who is able to overcome and power through both mental and physical challenges thrown at her and still becoming one of the most influential artists of our time. The seeds are a symbol of creating life and fertility, something that Frida longed to enjoy. By having the watermelon cut open and the seeds on display, Frida is becoming vulnerable to her viewer, as well as accepting something she never was able to enjoy. The circular shape of the watermelons represent the cycle of life and death, which Frida fulfilled by being born and passing away in Koyakan. Watermelons are also used as an offering during Day of the Dead, where the dead are celebrated rather than mourned. In this painting, Frida is celebrating her life rather than mourning her approaching death. In Frida's last journal entry, she writes, "I hope the exit is joyful, and I hope I never return." This painting is Frida's suicide note. She is standing here welcoming death with open arms, allowing it to take her pain away. In this imperfect painting, Frida is showing her message to her audience, where she is painting the imperfections of life through her art. In multiple of Frida's self-portraits, she paints herself with faint facial hair and a unibrow, defying against female beauty standards and embracing all aspects of femininity, regardless if society deems it as imperfect. Her relationship with Diego Rivera was full of love, infidelity, divorce, and remarriage. It was far from perfect. Frida's body itself was imperfect, being prone to multiple health conditions such as contracting polio, having a leg amputated, and being unable to fulfill the deemed female's purpose of bearing a child. But by painting these imperfections in a beautiful and talented manner, Frida is emphasizing human fallibility. We are imperfect creatures, but it's our imperfections that make us real and authentic. So, what does long live life mean for Frida? Well, Frida was both a revered artist and activist who'd create a lasting impact on both art, history, and culture in Mexico and the rest of the world. And after her death, she's still a symbol for Mexican culture, and her work being celebrated across the globe, even traveling to different art galleries, including National Galleries Singapore. Frida's work will inspire generations to come. At 8 years old, I painted my very own self-portrait inspired by Frida Kahlo. With its clumsy brushstrokes and wild colors, it was my first attempt to explore who I truly was. If it weren't for Frida, I wouldn't have dared to pick up that paintbrush. She taught me it isn't just technique, but it's about honesty and owning your story. Today, I stand here as not just someone who's analyzing her work, but as someone who's deeply shaped by it. She didn't just inspire me to create this painting all those years ago. She inspired and still inspires me today. So, from 1954 all the way to 2025, humans still strive to be perfect. However, when you find yourself overwhelmed with this feeling, let Viva la Vida and Frida inspire you to celebrate the imperfections of life rather than mourning to be perfect. Thank you.